So I've had the immense misfortune of coming across a few Meghan Markles in my life. And what I've learned is that sooner rather than later, their carefully curated mask always slips off. The classic saying comes to mind, give him enough rope. And the thing is, small fish, as Meghan Markle was before she met Harry, can get away with it in a way because they're not well known. So once they've had a falling out with their friend group or at their job with a partner, they can change all of these things. They can have a new friend group, get a new job, woo a new partner. But what do you do when you're on the world stage and you've got nowhere left to hide? For a lot of us, the alarm bells started to sound right from the get-go in November 2017 during that infamous engagement interview. For others, it was the wedding. And for many, it was the Oprah interview, if not the 2022 Netflix show. And some even managed to hold on until her latest Netflix offering with Hair in Your Food, Meghan. Check out my review of that show if you haven't already. Believe it or not, Meghan Markle actually started off really strong. Some people might forget that she was once quite popular and quite beloved. But the general gist that I've been observing over the past couple of years in particular is that many Meghan Markle supporters have since stopped supporting her, have even flat out turned against her after the inevitable realization that she is a fake. Whatever it is that they saw in her that made them like her and defend her was a sham, an illusion that was shattered by the inevitable mask slip. I think I said inevitable twice, and I don't like that. Let's start off with the more frivolous end of things. So first in line today, we have a reporter for the Sunday Times, Joanna Thomas-Core. In March of this year, right on the heels of the debut of With Hair in Your Food, Meghan, she wrote an article about how despite liking Meghan for the better part of the last decade, the fakery in her latest show is what finally did it for her. I mean, gee, it wasn't the lies in the Netflix series, the disrespect, the defamation. No, it was just the patheticness of a show. Now, to set the tone for how badly Joanna fell for Meghan's con initially, here's what she had to say about the criticism that, in my opinion, Meghan rightly received in the press ever since meeting Harry and taking over the entire mediascape.
I should say I always had a great deal of sympathy for Meghan for the cruel and inhospitable treatment she received in this country. There are plenty of awful things that she was blamed for that were not her fault, but I think this one is on her.
Cruel and inhospitable treatment. Do you have any examples of that, Joanna? I mean, the purpose of this video is not to rebut what these people are saying because they have eventually turned against her. But whenever people bring that up, I just go, where are your examples? Because we all have plenty of examples of her diabolical machinations. So unless it's some strange form of Old English I'm not aware of that translates to being welcomed with open arms and having palace staff bend over backwards to make you happy, you're gonna have to give us a little bit more detail about that. But I digress, not the point of this video. Now here's what she had to say about the Netflix show and why it completely put her off Meghan Markle.
So consummate is her performance as an awestruck little girl that I really do believe she is this amazed by eggs, this inspired by parfait, this fulfilled by putting peanut butter pretzels in small plastic bags and tying them up with ribbons.
Oh, believe you me, Joanna. She was not that amazed, inspired, or what did she say? Fulfilled. That was all an act. That's exactly why you and the rest of the world were put off that charade, because we could smell the fakery from a mile, from 10 miles, maybe try 1,000. And we don't like it. And now you know, at least, Joanna, and people in your boat, how we all felt when she sat there almost 8 years ago now during her engagement interview, pretending to be a little naive teenager.
I had one question. I said,
was he nice?
Then again, with love Meghan might serve as a comment on this terrifying new geopolitical era we seem to have entered.
To illustrate how the American elite became so out of touch with reality, spooning out yogurt became a miracle to them.
Yeah, and it took you this show to realize that Meghan Markle thrives off this whole image. It's not that she's accidentally coming across that way. It's not that she's actually tone deaf, like most people who come from old money are, like Prince Harry. Meghan Markle came from the trenches. Yes, she came from a privileged upbringing, but she was a commoner at the end of the day, and she's coveted being a part of this world for her entire life. So none of this is accidental. Meghan Markle is leaning into the whole out of touch elitism on purpose. In fact, she's made it her entire brand, and she has no apologies about the matter whatsoever. All right, moving on to our second contender, who very much like Joanna was, I suppose, a Meghan Markle defender, or at least neutral about her over the past few years, until her Netflix show dropped a couple of months ago. This time we've got a woman by the name of Varity Johnson, and she hails from all the way across the globe from Joanna in faraway New Zealand.
Meghan Markle's enduring unlikability has always struck me as kinda weird. I don't mean the people who were always going to hate her, like the boomer who hates her because she's the over-moisturized face of self-centered millennial culture, or the man, a la Piers Morgan, who hates her because she represents every pretty girl who has ever ignored him, or the male online reader who hates her because being mildly, permanently outraged is kinda fun, or just straight up racist.
So you can already see here that Varity has very much bought into the entire spiel of everyone who's been hating on Meghan is just jealous. They're just racist. They're just jilted men like Piers Morgan or jealous boomers.
No, what's interesting is her distinct lack of likability in the demographic who should like her. The mainstream, especially young middle-class aspirational women who buy Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop crystal eggs and have a soft spot for a scented candle. You know, my crew. So why does she keep failing to become a beloved personality? Probably because if you want to be a lifestyle personality, you actually have to show your personality. And Meghan never managed to do that.
Bingo! Nailed it! Applause for Varity. I mean, we've been saying this for years, right? When you don't have any discernible talent and your intellect is nowhere near the astronomical levels that you think it is, you're either going to have to be just a trophy wife and accept that and lean into it, or if you absolutely refuse to do that, as Meghan Markle does, you're going to have to need a personality with, as Varity says, a capital P. Especially if, like Meghan, you expect to command the world's attention 24/7. And the problem with Meghan is that she doesn't have the requisite personality. She's like a shell. You know how South Park portrayed her? An empty vessel that just reflects back to you whatever she thinks you need to see to get in your good books and to use you for her next target. Now, Varity, while she acknowledges that Meghan lacks a personality, seems to think it's somehow our fault. And this is where we diverge once again.
She comes across as trying hard to curate herself. I understand why she does that. She cops a lot of hatred for simply existing, but you can't curate yourself on camera if your whole shtick is, get to know the real me.
And that final line, she cops a lot of hatred for simply existing, is straight out of Meghan's playbook. She has literally said that herself in the 2022 Netflix show. But again, the point of this video is not to rebut these accusations because it's getting really tiresome. We've done it now for over 4 years at this point. We all get the memo, I'm sure, including former Meghan Markle sycophants and apologists. And finally, now we have an article on Medium, which was behind a membership paywall, so I'm not going to be able to quote it directly as much as I'd like. We're going to have to rely on some paraphrasing here, by Gracie Gato. And it's simply called F. Meghan Markle. And it's in the full form in the original article, by the way. I've had to censor it for YouTube purposes. A quick disclaimer before we proceed with this one. Gracie does get a little bit political, at least according to internet standards. I've been here on YouTube for over 5 years now. It's my 5th year, so I'm pretty much a veteran, and I know that some people are going to get really inflamed over this. So here's the disclaimer part. We don't do politics on this channel, okay? So whatever I mention are Gracie's views, not my own. If I'm paraphrasing her or quoting her, just wanted to make that clear. So the author Gracie is a self-described California girl who avidly defended Meghan Markle throughout the years. She eye-rolled her way through the Netflix docuseries, or reality show as we like to call it, and had to bite her tongue when she felt the need to critique. She swallowed it all down and was willing to accept what Meghan and Harry were saying. She even listened to Meghan's podcast, and I don't know which one she's referring to because this is quite a recent article. Could be the new one, which has entirely flopped. I mean, even I gave up after a couple of episodes. And she described it as the one with a god-awful nasal coddled rich bitch tone that made my spine curl. See, it could be either podcast because they both sounded like that. But still, Gracie didn't say a peep. She soldiered on in her defense and support of the great woman of color feminist heroine, Meghan Markle. So what did it then? What was the incident that broke the camel's back? Was it with hair in your food, Meghan, yet again? What made Gracie's maybes and excuses for Meghan finally run out, leaving her face to face with the naked, ugly truth that is Meghan Markle's character, which Gracie described as being, quote, about as deep as an Instagram caption in a sponsored post about finding your truth with a green juice in hand. I couldn't have said it better myself. This calls for another round of applause for Gracie, everyone. Seriously, that is some serious creativity there. And this is where she mentions politics, because it turns out that Meghan Markle's fake political activism, or we should call it performative activism, is what did it for Gracie. Now, she talks about rumors about Meghan firing a pro-Palestine staffer, but I think what she was actually referring to, because Meghan never fired anyone per se, was the incident from a couple of months ago, when Archewell very publicly cut ties with the Muslim Women's Coalition over a blog post that was written by the organization's leader, Janan Najib. Janan basically wrote about Israel, in her opinion, being an apartheid state, which was a designation also made by the International Court of Justice and by several other major human rights groups such as Amnesty International. She also called for an arms embargo and to free Palestine. Archewell, in response, as a lot of you probably already know by now, then cut ties with the coalition, as I mentioned, and sent a letter to Janan. Janan, we've recently been notified of a blog post you wrote that goes against the values of the foundation. As a foundation, we celebrate different perspectives and backgrounds, but we have zero tolerance for hateful words, actions, or propaganda, which is hilarious. I mean, even if you think Janan wrote hateful words and was disseminating propaganda, isn't that rich? Coming from the Duke and Duchess of hateful words, disinformation, and propaganda. You cannot make this up. And that's what did it for Gracie. She says, you can't sit on a moral high horse and swat down voices for Palestinian liberation. You can't claim to be for women, but not the women getting bombed, silenced, displaced, or fired for daring to speak out. So she's basically seen through Meghan's performative activist BS, which isn't just limited to this quite inflammatory political conflict. We've all covered her political BS throughout the years before this conflict even started. And it was always a matter of time until the rest of the world, including former defenders, Gracie says she defended Meghan repeatedly, finally saw the light, which is that Meghan Markle is nothing more than an opportunist, a PR strategist who weaponizes both feminism and racism to suit her selfish narrative. Gracie ends her piece by writing the following. Better late than never, I guess. My theory is that, aside from a few die-hard sycophants like BuzzFeed, actually, and Refinery29, who are still defending her to this very day, most people you'll find are neutral. They sit back and they just see a lot of criticism, because I used to be one of those people back in 2020. I used to be aware of all the hate Meghan gets, but because I wasn't invested, I didn't educate myself, I didn't understand it. I thought it was unwarranted. And then they only see through them when a major event happens, such as the engagement interview, maybe the wedding, or in my case, even though I did get red flags during the engagement interview, I was young and I just dismissed it out of my head. It didn't make an impact on me. I didn't care. But my wake-up call with Meghan, along with a lot of people, including Tom Bauer, author of Revenge, was the Oprah interview. So what I'm trying to say is, because people like Meghan can't help but seek attention and put themselves out there, they're going to commit a major own goal. It was never a matter of if, but when. So even though she still has a few stragglers in her Sussex squad and a few publications that literally only defend her because she pays them to do so, her group of minions and defenders is only getting smaller. With every passing week, with every episode she releases of her inane podcast, which I think is now over, thank the heavens, with every useless Instagram post she makes, her mask slips further and further and further, and her true character peeks through the cracks of a facade that she was once able to hide behind and con most of the world successfully, only to now be seen by almost everyone, even the most forgiving, apologetic defenders, for the fake, the fraud that she really is. And now the final round of applause is for Meghan herself. Bravo, Meghan. Bravo for perhaps one of the greatest and highest number of own goals committed right there in the football field of the world. That sounded a little too dramatic. So I'm just going to end it here.